Hello and welcome to this YouTube series, Hornet Heroes episode 2 for Vibe107.6 FM. And I'm delighted to be joined by Watford legend, USA legend, Jay DeMerit. Jay, thank you very much for joining me in the car in Vancouver. Not quite Watford, but it will do.
That's right. Well, I'm sharing the UK weather right now with pouring rain and grey outside. So, I feel right at home here with the UK market, that's for sure.
You're about eight hours behind us, I believe, but you are just 8 hours away, or whether you're 2 minutes away, you're loved in Watford. And we're going to start by talking about your time there. And when you first moved to the UK from, was it Chicago, did you ever foresee playing in the Premier League, playing for your country in the World Cup? Did you ever imagine how big you'd become just from making that move to Europe?
I definitely, when I left the US, I definitely did it with purpose. By no means did I think that at the time that, the first goal was just to make a team. I think, the biggest way I can explain it is to kind of create the mindset of dreaming big but thinking small. I think the dream big idea was I'm moving to England with nothing but a backpack, but I'm using this as an opportunity to make it pro. Did I think that Watford in the World Cup was next? I mean, at the time, probably not. But again, if you dream big and think small, you think about those things. But then the first thing you do is you start playing for Southall Town in the 12th division, and then you go from there to Northwood in the 9th, and then from the 9th to the 1st, and then the 1st to the Prem, and then the Prem to the World Cup. So if you think about what that means and how you take each of those journeys or steps at one at a time, it's amazing how far you can go when you create that mindset. And that was definitely me when I landed on English shores, was to go and see what happens. Again, I had good people around me in the UK that were telling me that these types of things could potentially be possible. But first, you've got to control what you can control. And those were my performances. That was my ability to, play against Watford in that preseason friendly famous league with Northwood. If I don't play well in that game, I'm never making Watford in the first place. So, you got to take your first steps as they come and make sure you make the most of them along the way. So that's certainly what I did. And that never seemed to stop once my career started. So, again, that was part of the mindset of dreaming big and thinking small.
Well, Northwood's got a very special place in my heart. I was part of the press team in Watford, so that's also kind of where I began my journey. What was the transition like when you moved to England? It must have been a massive change studing from the States to London.
It was, yeah. I think for me, again, as a student, I knew what it was like to have no money, so that wasn't too different. I have enough money for my Snickers bars and my Ribena, but other than that, again, the good thing for me was I'd kind of been living in those kind of conditions. So for me to kind of change that when I got to England wasn't as surprising as I thought it would be. But I think that the pleasant surprise for me was, once I started to play at that level, and once I started to play against good non-league players, again, these are former pros, guys that have been released from pro clubs, and so then to be on the same field with those kind of players and then do okay, I started to get a little bit more confidence. As a 23-year-old American, I didn't have a ton of confidence when I first got there, especially going to a place like England where, everyone that's a footballer and everyone from around the world wants to come there and be a footballer. So I think for me, first I had to get over that first little bit of, do I belong here? Can I play here? And once I was able to kind of get over those hurdles, I started to gain confidence, and I started to get some good rapport with local coaches and players that thought maybe, I could be that player over time. But I think we were all under the understanding that I still had a lot of work to do when I landed on the UK shores.
I'm sure you must have been one of the only, if not the only, American footballer in the Isthmian League, the 9th, or was it the 7th division of English football, but pretty low down. What was it like being signed by Ray Lewington and going to Watford, putting on that golden shirt?
Well, again, famously, I remember it very clearly. My first game, that was that trial game against Real Zaragoza. Again, I hadn't even trained with the first team yet. I'd been having two good reserve games, so I'd had a couple 90 minutes under my belt with the reserve, so I was starting to play at a decent standard. But of course, Ray Lewington famously didn't tell me. He just said, "Yeah, come to the Real Zaragoza game. It's your first game at Vicarage Road. We'll try to get you involved." But that's all he said. He didn't say you're going to start or that you're going to play against a La Liga team that just beat Real Madrid the previous year. So, that was like. But again, I think he did that to protect me and not to get me too nervous about it. And in a way, it worked out great because again, you go into those moments and. Of course, you have a little bit of fear factor, but the good thing about my mentality was fear is good if you can channel it in the right direction and make sure that you use it for energy and not for fear. And so that's what I did. That moment came, and I knew that I had been, in the doldrums of the 9th and 12th division. So this is the opportunity I'd been waiting for a year and a half. And you got to make the most of those opportunities. You can't be scared when they happen. You got to be prepared when they happen. And thankfully I was prepared. I had good weeks of training with that reserve team and was ready to step in there with the first team. And thankfully did enough that day and for Ray to call me in his office and say, well, I think you've done enough to warrant a year walk on trial. So that was it. And I had my first contract. So again, sometimes that's all you need to get that foot in the door. And from there it was kind of a refocus and making sure that, again, it wasn't just, now I get to be comfortable because I got a pro contract. It was kind of like, okay, well, now I got a year to show Ray and the rest of the team that I belong there.
What do you think it would have been like if it was today and there were no fans? Do you think you mentioned that energy, do you think it would have had a real effect?
It could have, definitely. Again, the good thing about, I think, what's happening now is that everyone has to go through this. It's not as much of an individual thing at the moment. I think everyone in a locker room is in strange times and doing what the best they can because no one's ever been there before. So for me, again, I probably would have kept the same positive attitude that I have and make the most of it. But it's certainly a time when, you don't get to feed into the energy of the fans. I watch, again, I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan too. So watching Lambeau Field with 0 people in it is such a strange environment for the players as well as it is for fans. But, as always, you try to make the most of these situations and get the most out of them. So, again, the team has started pretty well this year at Watford. So looking forward to continuing the season and cheering them on from afar.
It's a crazy world we live in. I don't know if you've heard, but fans will slowly be returning to football grounds based on the tier system in England. But let's go back to when you were playing for the Golden Boys and AD Boothroyd took over as the manager, and you really did very well under AD. You went up to the Premier League, and what difference did he make coming into that side that Ray Lewington, he didn't quite have that spark that AD did?
Well, I think the first thing AD did was really, again, like you said, he added a certain belief. He added a bit of a spark. I know famously when he took over, we all looked at the team. I remember looking at the screen for the first time going, that's a funny name. Where's he come from? Oh, Leeds youth program. Interesting. And again, but in a way it was nice for me because it wasn't a big manager that had all of these, preempted thoughts in his head. He was as new as I was to the game and or at least to the head coaching game or head manager game. And so for me, it was an advantage. I saw his young and hungriness and he saw that in me too. So I think AD and I always kind of vibed on that in our relationship over the years. And, I think he respected that whole idea of me not being able to, be the old man on campus. And I think he needed fresh players like me, and he needed the old heads too, like Alex Chamberlain and Neil Cox and Malky Mackay. So, he really did play both of the sides of those coins to mix his group. And I think what AD really separated itself from in the beginning was just his ability to relate individually, the man management type of idea that the best managers of the world seem to have. And that's, I'm different than Malky, so he's not going to talk to me the same way. He's not going to inspire me the same way he's going to inspire Malky or the older pros that were starting this journey with everyone. And so he started with that. He started to manage and get the most out of all of us and really kind of have his own singular requests based on what we wanted to get and what he wanted to get out of us. And I remember he always would pick a guy after training, put his arm around him and walk him around the training field. And we'd have all these kind of one-on-one conversations. And then every day after training, we would all sit in the big meeting room as a group and we would talk about a lot of things, team goals, goal setting, really reliving all of our performances throughout that year. And we called it kind of this circle mentality where every game, that circle grew stronger. And by the end of that first season, not only had we proved the doubters wrong, but we had proved ourselves right, that we were good enough to potentially get promoted. And that started our playoff run. And again, anyone that watched that playoff game, there was only one team that was going to win that game. And that was a team that was had a belief system that was built throughout that whole season. And nothing was going to stop us at that point.
Unbelievable. And that belief is what Vladimir Ivic spoke about today in his press conference. He said that he really believes in this Watford team and it's so important. AD Boothroyd with the under-21s in England and they're thriving. And then Brendan Rodgers came into Watford. Did you ever foresee what a successful manager he would become, not only with Liverpool, but then with Leicester?
Well, I always saw his intelligence, his football, ability to pick a good team. Brendan Rodgers has the best training sessions I've ever been a part of. His training sessions are short, they're sharp, they're to the point, and they really play football, and again, I was an athlete first and a footballer second. So, he was one of the first managers to really teach me about the game tactically and technically. And 80 was more of a direct style of play and, kick it, head it, elbow it. And for me, that's what suited me. But until I met Brendan and really kind of understood what a good training session, was on that really technical level, but fun and interesting, that's when I really started to learn more of that side of the game. And so Brendan was kind of the first manager to teach me that. And I was captain under him too. So it was kind of one of those things where every time you're under a different manager, you learn a little bit more how to lead, especially when you're a leader of that group. And those were the years I was captain at the end of 80's career, but also, the beginning of Brendan's. And, for me to be a leader under those environments, I learned a lot from those two guys, not only how to treat, men individually and with respect and with positivity, but also, how to lead from the front. And I think both those guys had that in abundance.
So playing for your country, you were remembering what people like Brendan had told you?
100%. Yeah. And I think, those types of guys and Brendan in particular, with his success over the years, I'd stay in contact with them, or if he'd win a big game for whoever. And when he got the Liverpool job, I remember sending him a text. He sent it back right away. These kind of guys, they treat people with respect, and they treat people, with that whole kind of, doesn't matter who I am. I will treat you like a normal person. And I think, both those guys have that. And in particular, Brendan, at the highest level now, has been able to keep that vibe and really, gain respect throughout the industry.
And I've seen you're still in touch with Ben Foster, the only man standing from your days back at Watford. Do you think Watford can go up this year? Is it possible for them to win the championship or get automatically, or even in the playoffs?
I do believe that. Again, I do think that there's a core group, that of course always is going to move on at times. When you go down from the Premier League, unfortunately, that's the way of the game. And I do think people like Ben, guys, that have been there for a while, know the Watford, structure. These are the people that are going to carry you through a long championship season. And I think guys like him are going to be ones to call on. And a couple of the others now that have Premier League type quality, but are still at Watford. And you need those ones to go straight back up. And we all know that the more you don't go straight back up, the more likely you're going to be down in the championship. So I think this year is the year. And as always, the ownership group at Watford, it pushes, for success. And I don't see that changing at all. I see again, this ability to push in the right direction, but still keeping it where you still feel like you're a part of a family club like Watford, and that everyone's in it together. So I see that already happening this season, and hopefully wish that continues throughout the season, and we can go straight back up.
Watford's community absolutely is very powerful, like you say. A final question, a two-part question. The first is, what's your favourite memory in any football shirt? And the second, what's your favourite memory in a Watford shirt?
Favorite memory in a football shirt was definitely, well, this is has English ties to, my greatest moment on a football pitch was the national anthem of the World Cup, USA, England, Pretoria. When your national anthem comes on and you got your hand on your heart and you know that you've been one of the 11 picked to represent your country on the biggest sporting event on the planet, nobody can take that away from you, and nobody could ever beat that. You just can't. But also to do it against a country like England, who took a chance on me. England was a country that, took me under their wing and taught me about the game. So I've always respected that about the country itself, and to have England in that game as well, I think meant even more so. And, so that moment was my favorite moment in the shirt. Watford would have to be playoff final. The playoff final was kind of the first springboard to make, me eligible for a national team shirt too. To be able to come from, the park leagues and to walk over to England with nothing but a backpack, and to get to that moment where all of a sudden, my family was in the stands, my non-league coaches from Northwood and Southall and ex-players, they were all in the stands that day too. So to have all those people that were a part of that long journey there in the stands that way, that to enjoy that day with me, to score, to get the man of the match, and, talk on that big jumbotron in front of 75,000 people about the journey and how it takes you to get there, and that these types of things can come true is truly, what it's all about. When you choose to take a journey that no one else believes in, those are the moments that really make it all right, and make it all, you make it all worthwhile. And so that moment, the playoff final, not only the springboard to the Premier League, but also all the implications it took for me to get there and to enjoy that moment with all the fans and my family in the stands that day was made it extra special.
Well, Jay, you're an inspiration. You're a Hornets legend. Thank you so much for joining us on this Hornets Heroes podcast. It is amazing to speak to you, and we hope you stay safe out across the pond in Canada.
My pleasure. Hello to all the Yellow Army faithful. I'll see you guys soon when I can travel again, but looking forward to get back to Vicarage Road and saying hi to everybody.